It doesn't matter if you're a helpful support player, a wily controller, or a DPS rockstar. Let's all take a moment and say thank you to the party tank. Because, to paraphrase Maureen from Kingdom Under Fire, The Crusades, they go out and die for us, you should be grateful. But seriously, if you're a tank player, you are a hero. You're the shield. You're the sea wall that the enemy breaks on. You're the strong right hand of the party. And that's why I'm here to provide the D6 damage guide to effective tanking. First off, I'd like to get into the psychology of tanking. There are 2 points that need to be addressed. One is pretty obvious, the other one is a little less so. Obvious point first. As a tank, it's your job to get hit. Now, obviously, I don't mean you just should recklessly run in there and deliberately get hit as many times as possible. You should avoid and mitigate as much damage as possible, but ultimately, you are there to take punches for the other characters that can't get hit nearly as well as you do. Every time you as a tank take a hit that's a hit that another party member doesn't need to take, and you're built to withstand it. The less obvious point that needs to be addressed is, as a tank, it is not your job to do damage. Again, that's not to say that you're just a turtle that the enemy is supposed to wail on until somebody walks up and stabs them in the back. Do as much damage as you can, but always remember, especially in terms of gear, equipment, and purchasing, you want to maximize your defenses over your offenses, which is just something good to have. A one-handed weapon and a shield is not going to do nearly as much damage as a large two-handed blade or bludgeoning implement, but it gives you more AC and better chances of not getting hit and deflecting blows. Next, let's talk about the difference between HP tanking and AC tanking. AC tanking is achieved when you are simply not being hit because of your armor class. You've found a way to get it high enough that the grand majority of attacks are just not going to hit you. HP tanking is achieved by having such a large reserve of health that you can get hit a lot before you're significantly damaged. Now, to be a truly effective tank, you sort of need both. Certain classes and tanking styles will sort of push you in one way or the other, but really, you are going to want the best of both HP and AC that you can get. Now that I've gone over some of the basics of tanking, let's look at the classes which are going to help you tank effectively. As a tank, Paladins are second to none. Remember, the Paladin has become the champion in Pathfinder 2nd Edition. As a Paladin, you have a large hit die at a D10. In Pathfinder 2, you have 10 HP per level plus your Constitution modifier. You're also proficient with heavy armor and shields. And for tanking, I recommend both. Finally, one of the things that makes Paladins truly efficient tanks is their lay on hands ability. Being able to quickly recover your own HP after being hit really makes it easy on any support players behind you, and it also means that you're much more independent than other characters that need to be reliant on items or support from other means to keep them topped off in the safe zone for health. The next class that has a lot of potential for solid tank material is, of course, the fighter. Much like the Paladin, you have the D10 hit die, 10 HP plus con modifier in Pathfinder 2. You have good, solid armor proficiencies. And as a fighter, you have a lot of feats to help modify and build your character the way you want to. The final class I think is important to acknowledge when it comes to tanking is the Barbarian. Now, you can make a very solid argument that the Barbarian is primarily a melee DPS character. But I think you can still do good things when it comes to tanking. First off, Barbarians have the largest hit die at a D12. In Pathfinder 2, you have 12 HP per level plus your Constitution modifier. Unfortunately, you are restricted to medium armor. In the original Pathfinder, you do get damage reduction to compensate for that, which is fantastic for surviving in heavy battle scenarios. Finally, as a barbarian, you have Rage. Rage not only makes you an incredibly effective killer with your chosen weapon, and the enormous amounts of damage you can output with it, you also get a bonus to HP, which will allow you to stand up in the middle of battle even longer. There are also some helpful rage powers that can get you back HP or stop you from up and dying. Finally, I'd like to go over some general tips for tanking effectively. Number 1, stay close to your support. Even if you're a beefy paladin with lots of lay on hands, you still don't want to get too far away from the cleric or the bard or someone who can help you get back on your feet if things turn south on you. Because if you get mobbed, you're going to go down like a wildebeest under a pack of hyenas. Or if you run into something which is bigger, badder, and hits harder than you do, you're just going to get run over. Remember, as a tank, it's your job to tie up the enemy and allow the high damage output characters to bring the enemy down. Next up, draw aggro. As a tank, you do not need to be subtle or stealthy. One of my all-time favorite paladin spells is called Knight's Calling. It's a fun enchantment spell that forces an enemy to fight you. Next, know what party members need you. Generally, clerics are built fairly tough, and they can stand up to the heat of battle right next to you, which is where they should be. Similar story with bards. Rangers, rogues, and other striker-type characters are protected primarily by their mobility and their ability to get away from large groups of enemies or anything which is too much for them to handle. The ones that are going to need you the most are the squishy characters like mages. And of course, any really high priority targets like clerics, it's good to not get too far away from them, again, for both your benefit and theirs. Next, some control isn't a bad thing. Consider taking a weapon with the trip ability, and if you're a fighter, investing in combat maneuver feats like improved trip and greater trip that will allow you to effectively bog down the enemy you're fighting. One-time use weapons like nets are a great idea because it can further tie up enemy forces. Finally, don't neglect your dexterity stat. When you sit down to build your tank, Constitution should be very high on your priority list, and so should Strength, because that's where your damage is going to come from, and any chips you put into the enemy makes them that much easier to bring down. But not having good enough dexterity can definitely hurt you. Not only are you losing out on AC, you'll also leave yourself vulnerable to very dangerous area of effect abilities, like Dragonfire, fireballs, and other things that require reflex saves. I hope you've enjoyed the D6 damage tanking guide. If you're interested in more strategy and class analysis guides for Pathfinder, check out D6 Damage right here on YouTube. And if you want to take your game further, join the D6 Damage Discord. The link is down in the description.